The twin sons of Terra. Seven cast long shadows across Harrow's scrap heap as Jack Harrow wiped the grease from his hands. Another day, another broken fusion regulator to fix. The life of a salvage mechanic on the edge of colonized space was never glamorous, but paid the bills and kept him far from the bureaucratic nonsense of the core worlds. His comm unit crackled to life. Debris field detected in Sector 7. Fresh wreckage from last week's skirmish. You want first pick before the corporate vultures show up. Jack grinned. His friend Maya at the orbital station always looked out for him. Send me the coordinates. I'm heading out now. 20 minutes later, Jack's salvage hauler drifted through a field of twisted metal and shattered hull plating. The battle between the Drakthari Empire and some rebel faction had left plenty of valuable scrap floating in the void. He maneuvered carefully, his practice spotting viable fusion cores, intact thruster assemblies, and undamaged sensor arrays. Then something caught his attention. It was massive, easily 40 feet long, tumbling slowly through the debris. At first glance, it looked like a heavily damaged starfighter with unusual organic curves. But as Jack brought his hauler closer, his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a ship. It was alive. The creature was unlike anything Jack had seen in person, though he recognized it from the news broadcasts. A Drakthari warrior, the galaxy's most feared species. Part dragon, part machine, all nightmare according to the stories. Its scales shimmered with faint bioluminescent patterns that flickered weakly like dying embers. Cybernetic enhancements covered portions of its body, many of them sparking and leaking glowing fluid into space. Jack's instinct screamed at him to fly away. The Drakthari were dangerous even when friendly, which they rarely were toward humans. A wounded one would be even more unpredictable. Besides, it was probably dead already. But then he saw it. The faintest movement of the creature's chest. A shallow breath that stirred the damaged plating along its rib cage. Damn it, Jack muttered. He couldn't just leave it out here. He was a mechanic. He fixed things. That's what he did. Even if those things had claws that could slice through titanium and could breathe plasma hot enough to melt steel. Jack carefully positioned his hauler and extended the magnetic crane. The Dragon was too big for his cargo bay, so he'd have to tow it externally. As the crane's clamps locked onto the creature's armored shoulders, several of its cybernetic systems suddenly activated. Warning lights flashed red across Jack's console. Oh, that's not good. A vent along the Dragon's spine suddenly erupted with superheated plasma, missing Jack's cockpit by mere feet. The blast melted a chunk of debris behind him into molten slag. Jack's hands flew across the controls, adjusting the crane's position to avoid the malfunctioning systems. Easy there, big guy, Jack said, though he knew the unconscious creature couldn't hear him. I'm trying to help. Another defense system activated, this time a pulse of electromagnetic energy that temporarily knocked out Jack's navigation systems. He cursed and switched to manual controls, his heart pounding as he carefully maneuvered away from the Dragon's thrashing mechanical tail. It took nearly an hour of delicate work, but Jack finally secured the creature and began the slow journey back to Terra 7. The Dragon remained unconscious, its automated defenses firing randomly every few minutes. Each time, Jack had to dodge or shield his hauler from the attacks. By the time Jack landed at his junkyard, he was exhausted and sweating despite the ship's climate control. He guided the crane toward his largest hangar bay, the one he usually reserved for repairing shuttles and small freighters. The Dragon barely fit inside. As Jack lowered the creature onto the reinforced floor, he finally got a good look at it in proper lighting. The damage was extensive. Its biomechanical spine showed cracks and breaks in several places. Entire sections of its cybernetic enhancements were corroded or shattered. The neural interface ports along its skull were leaking both blood and some kind of coolant fluid. Its massive heart engine, visible through the damaged chest plating, pulsed irregularly. What have I got myself into? Jack whispered. The Dragon's eye suddenly opened, just a crack. For a brief moment, Jack found himself staring into molten gold. Then the eye closed again, and the creature's breathing remained shallow and labored. Jack rolled up his sleeves and grabbed his toolkit. He had work to do. Jack stood in front of the unconscious Dragon, tools spread across 3 workbenches. He had repaired alien technology before, but nothing that was both machine and living creature at the same time. This was going to be the biggest challenge of his career. He started by scanning the dragon's body with every diagnostic tool he owned. The readings made no sense at first. Organic tissue merged seamlessly with mechanical components. Blood vessels ran parallel to data cables. The creature's heart pumped both blood and some kind of coolant liquid through its body. Its nervous system connected directly to quantum processors embedded in its spine. Incredible, Jack muttered, studying the scans. It's not a creature with implants. It's something completely different. Biology and technology working as one. The first 3 days were spent just learning. Jack carefully examined each system, taking notes and making sketches. He discovered that the dragon's damaged spine was causing most of the problems. The cybernetic vertebrae acted as both structural support and data conduits. With several sections broken, the creature's entire body was shutting down. Jack searched his inventory for anything that could work. He found segments from a military combat suit's exoskeleton. They were human-made, much cruder than the Dractheri technology, but the dimensions were close enough. He spent hours modifying the pieces, adjusting them to fit the dragon's unique physiology. Installing them was terrifying. One wrong move could paralyze or kill the creature. Jack worked slowly, his hands steady despite his racing heart. He connected each artificial vertebra carefully, matching the neural pathways as best he could. When he activated the new spine segments, the dragon's tail twitched. Success. Next came the damaged tissue. Large patches of the dragon's scales had been burned away, exposing raw flesh beneath. Jack used his medical fabricator, a device meant for printing human skin grafts, to create biocompatible patches. He had to adjust the chemical composition 17 times before finding something the dragon's body wouldn't reject. The power core was the most dangerous repair. The dragon's heart engine was failing, its quantum batteries depleted. Jack didn't have replacement parts, so he improvised. He connected 6 fusion cell batteries in parallel, creating a temporary external power supply. He held his breath as he wired it into the dragon's chest cavity. If he crossed the wrong circuits, the resulting explosion would level half his junkyard. The connection clicked into place. The heart engine stabilized, its rhythm becoming stronger and more regular. Jack let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. By the 7th day, Jack was exhausted but determined. He had one more critical repair left. The translator implant in the dragon's skull was corroded and malfunctioning. Without it, they couldn't communicate even if the creature woke up. Jack carefully extracted the damaged implant and spent hours cleaning the neural contacts and replacing burned circuits. As he was reconnecting the implant, the dragon's eyes suddenly opened. Both of them. Golden eyes that glowed like molten metal stared directly at Jack. The mechanic froze, screwdriver still in hand, inches from the creature's head. The dragon didn't move. It simply watched him with an intelligence that was unmistakable. Jack slowly withdrew his hand and took a step back. "Easy," Jack said softly. "I'm helping you. You were dying out in space. I brought you here to fix you." The dragon's mouth opened slightly. A sound came out, but it was garbled and distorted. The translator wasn't fully connected yet. Jack made a decision. He stepped forward again, keeping his movements slow and obvious. "I need to finish the repair on your translator. Then we can talk. I promise I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon's eyes followed Jack's every movement, but it didn't attack. Somehow, it seemed to understand. Jack reconnected the final wires and activated the implant. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a deep voice, rich and powerful, filled the hangar. "You saved me." "Why?" Jack smiled despite his nervousness. "Because you needed help. That's reason enough." The dragon was silent for a long moment. "I am called Rin. I was shot down during a border fight. My ship exploded. I should have died." "Well, Rin, I'm Jack. And you're not dead because I'm stubborn and don't like seeing things stay broken when they can be fixed." Jack gestured at his junkyard visible through the hangar doors. "Everything deserves a chance to run again. Even you." Rin's eyes studied Jack with new intensity. "You risked your life. My defense systems nearly killed you multiple times. Jack shrugged. Yeah, that was exciting. But you're stable now. You need rest and time to heal. The organic parts will take longer than the mechanical ones. I am in your debt, human. Just get better. We can talk about debts later. 3 weeks passed, and Rin grew stronger each day. Jack brought him fuel cells and protein synthesizers to help his body heal. They talked for hours while Jack worked on other repairs around the junkyard. Rin told stories about distant worlds and space battles. Jack shared his philosophy about machines and second chances. An unlikely friendship bloomed between the gruff mechanic and the dragon warrior. Rin never spoke much about his past or his family. When Jack asked, he simply said he was a low-ranking soldier. Nothing important. Jack didn't push. Everyone had secrets, and Rin had earned his privacy by being good company and occasionally helping lift heavy equipment with his massive strength. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning. Jack was welding a cracked hull plate when the sky turned dark, not from clouds, but from 3 enormous warships that dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the colony. Each ship was the size of a small city, their hulls covered in weapons and armor that gleamed like dragon scales. The emergency broadcast system activated across every screen and speaker on Terra 7. A massive Dracthari warrior appeared, his scarred face filling the displays. His voice was thunder. Attention, humans of Terra 7. We are the Imperial Talon Fleet of the Dracthari Empire. We seek Prince Rinseth Goldenwing, son of Emperor Vextor Flamecrown. Intelligence suggests he crashed in this system. Return him immediately, or your world will burn. You have 24 hours. Jack dropped his welding torch. His mouth went dry. He turned slowly to look at Rin, who had emerged from a hangar at the sound of the broadcast. The dragon's expression was pained and guilty. Prince, Jack's voice was barely a whisper. You're the Emperor's son? Rin lowered his massive head. I cannot tell you. I needed to understand something first. Understand what? That you put my entire planet at risk. Jack's hands were shaking, though whether from fear or anger, he couldn't tell. I needed to understand why, Rin said quietly. Why would a human risk everything to save me? Your species and mine have never been allies. We have barely been civil. Yet you pulled me from certain death and spent weeks repairing me. You asked for nothing in return. Jack ran his hand through his hair. So you lied to me? I omitted the truth. There is a difference. Rin stepped closer. In my world, rank determines everything. If you knew I was royalty, you might have acted differently, sought reward or favors. I wanted to meet a human who saw me as simply another being in need. Above them, the warships began moving into attack positions. Across the colony, sirens wailed. The local militia was mobilizing, but everyone knew it was useless. Human weapons couldn't scratch those warships. I will return to my people, Rin said firmly. I will not let Terra 7 suffer for my choices. And then what? Jack demanded. They court-martial you, or whatever dragons do for getting lost. The politics are complicated. My disappearance has caused chaos in the Empire. There are factions that want me dead, others who will use my absence against my father. Rin's golden eyes met Jack's. But I have learned something valuable here. Something that will change everything if I am brave enough to act on it. Jack wanted to stay angry, but he could see the conflict in Rin's eyes. The Dragon Prince was struggling with something bigger than both of them. What did you learn? Jack asked. That strength is not the only measure of worth. That compassion is not weakness. That humans, whom my people dismiss as soft and unremarkable, possess something we have lost. Rin's voice grew stronger. You gave me a gift, Jack. Not just my life, but a new way of seeing the galaxy. The comm system crackled. The colonial governor's panicked voice filled the airwaves. We don't have the prince. We don't know what you're talking about. Please don't attack. The scarred Dracthari commander appeared on screen again. 23 hours remain. Jack made a decision. Okay, you need to go back. But not crawling and apologetic. You go back on your terms. What do you mean? I mean you're going to show them exactly what a human mechanic can do. Jack grinned despite the fear in his gut. Your repairs. They're holding perfectly, right? better than perfect. Some of those hybrid systems I built are actually more efficient than the original Dracthery parts. Rin's eyes widened with understanding. You want to prove humanity's worth. I want to give you ammunition for whatever fight is coming. Jack pointed at Rin's wings, which now gleamed with human aerospace alloys mixed with regenerated scales. Your evidence that our species working together creates something better than either could alone. Rin extended his wings fully. They caught the sunlight, human metal and dragon biology shining as one. Then let us show them. Rin launched himself into the sky with a powerful thrust of his repaired wings. Jack watched on the ground as the dragon prince soared upward, leaving a trail of shimmering energy behind him. The entire colony held its breath as Rin approached the flagship of the Imperial fleet. The massive warship's hangar bay opened like a metal mouth. Rin flew inside and landed on the deck with thunderous impact. Hundreds of Dracthery warriors stood in formation, their weapons ready. At the center stood the scarred commander, General Crackstow Ashbringer, his eyes blazing with barely contained fury. Prince Rin Seth. The general's voice dripped with false respect. We have searched for 3 months. The Emperor has been sick with worry. I was injured and recovering, Rin replied calmly. A human mechanic saved my life. Murmurs rippled through the assembled warriors. The general's expression darkened. A human? You allowed a primitive creature to touch royal flesh and sacred technology. That primitive creature performed repairs that saved my life when any Dracthery salvager would have stripped me for parts and profit. Rin spread his wings, letting the assembled warriors see the gleaming hybrid repairs. Look closely, General. Human aerospace alloys integrated with our biological systems. Crude human batteries powering my heart engine more efficiently than our own quantum cells. Improvised armor plating that is lighter yet stronger. One of the fleet engineers stepped forward, examining Rin's wings with shocked eyes. This is impossible. How did a human achieve this level of integration? Through skill, creativity, and compassion, Rin answered. Traits we have foolishly dismissed in humanity. General Crackstow slammed his tail against the deck. This changes nothing. Terra, 7 harbored royalty without reporting it. They must pay a shelter tax. Resources, technology, and territorial concessions. They did not know who I was, Rin said firmly. I conceal my identity. The mechanic, Jack Harrow, believed he was saving a common soldier. Irrelevant, the general snarled. The law is clear. Rin's eyes flashed with golden fire. Then I invoke my right as royal blood. I demand a trial of worth. The hangar fell silent. A trial of worth was ancient law, used to settle disputes of honor. No one could refuse it, not even a general. Crackstow's scarred face twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. Very well, Prince. Name your terms. Not combat, Rin said, surprising everyone. A test of engineering and skill. The human Jack Harrow will participate if he succeeds in a challenge set by your engineers. Terra, 7 is cleared of all obligations. If he fails, I alone face the consequences. The colony goes free. The general considered this. Agreed, but the challenge will be fitting for the arrogance you display. He gestured to his chief engineer. Bring the broken war mech from cargo hold 7. 20 minutes later, Jack received a transport shuttle to flagship. His legs felt weak as he stepped onto the hangar deck, surrounded by dragon warriors who could each tear him apart without effort. But then he saw Rin, and his friend nodded encouragement. The chief engineer, a massive dragon with silver scales, presented the challenge. This war mech was damaged in battle. Critical systems destroyed. We deem it unrepairable without returning to Imperial shipyards. You have 12 hours to prove otherwise. You may use only materials available on Terra. 7. Jack examined the war mech. It was a 30-foot-tall combat machine, humanoid in shape, but clearly designed for Dracthery pilots. The quantum core was shattered. The coolant system had melted. The armor plating had holes punched completely through it. Every engineer on the ship was watching him, expecting him to fail. Jack rolled up his sleeves. I'll need my tools and access to my junkyard inventory. Granted. The general said with a dismissive wave. What followed was the most intense 12 hours of Jack's life. He dove into the work with single-minded focus. The quantum core was beyond repair, so he bypassed it entirely. He pulled a combustion engine from an old human mining truck and modified it to generate the power the mech needed. It was louder and less elegant, but it worked. The coolant system was replaced with commercial refrigeration units. Jack welded them together in parallel, creating a network that could handle the mech's heat output. For the armor plating, he used compressed materials from his junkyard, layering them in a honeycomb pattern that distributed impact force. The Drakthari engineers watched in growing amazement as Jack worked. He didn't use their methods. He created entirely new solutions using human ingenuity and stubborn determination. At the 9-hour mark, Jack stepped back, fired up. The war mech powered on with a rumble that shook the hangar. All systems showed green. The chief engineer ran diagnostics, his eyes growing wider with each result. 87% efficiency, he whispered. Impossible. Jack wiped the grease from his hands. That's the thing about humans. We don't know what's impossible, so we just fix it anyway. The hangar erupted in stunned silence. Even General Crackstow stared at the functioning war mech, with disbelief written across his scarred face. The chief engineer ran the diagnostics 3 more times, unable to accept what his instruments were telling him. Before anyone could speak, the air in the center of the hangar shimmered and tore open. A quantum gate, the most advanced technology in the Drakthari Empire, materialized in a flash of purple light. Every warrior in the hangar immediately dropped to one knee. Through the gate stepped Emperor Vextor Flamecrown himself. Jack had thought Rin was impressive, but the Emperor was something else entirely. He was massive, easily twice Rin's size, with scales that shimmered like molten gold. His presence filled the entire hangar with an aura of raw power that made Jack's knees weak. Ancient cybernetic enhancements covered his body, each one a work of art that hummed with barely contained energy. My son. The Emperor's voice was deep as thunder yet gentle as summer rain. You live. Rin bowed his head. Father, I apologize for the worry I have caused. The Emperor moved forward and embraced his son, his massive wings wrapping around Rin. For a moment, the fearsome ruler of the Drakthari Empire was simply a father reunited with his lost child. Then Vextor pulled back, his golden eyes studying Rin carefully. You have changed, the Emperor observed. Something in you is different. I have learned much during my time here, Rin replied. Things that I believe will change our empire for better. The Emperor's gaze shifted to Jack, who stood frozen near the repaired war mech. And this is a human who saved you? Jack swallowed hard but refused to bow or look away. Something told him that showing weakness before this being would be a mistake. Jack Harrow, your majesty. I'm just a mechanic. I fix what was broken. A ripple of shock went through the assembled warriors. No one spoke to the Emperor, so casually, but Vextor's eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. Just a mechanic, the Emperor repeated slowly. Yet you repaired my son using techniques unknown to my finest engineers. You completed a challenge in 9 hours that my chief engineer declared impossible. He moved closer to Jack, each step making the deck vibrate. Tell me, Jack Harrow, who is just a mechanic, why did you save my son? Because he needed help, Jack said simply. In my junkyard, I've learned that everything deserves a chance to run again. Machines, ships, people. Doesn't matter what species they are. If something can be fixed, I try to fix it. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. Then he turned to address the assembled warriors and engineers. My son wishes to propose a formal alliance between the Drakthari Empire and humanity, not as conquerors and subjects, but as equals and partners. General Crackstow stepped forward, his voice tight with controlled anger. My Emperor, this is madness. Humans are weak, primitive. They have nothing to offer us but problems. They have ingenuity, Rin interjected. They have adaptability. They have compassion that we have forgotten in our pursuit of strength and honor. Compassion is weakness, the general snarled. Jack surprised himself by speaking up. Is it? I've spent my whole life working with machines. You know what I've learned? The best machines aren't built from one type of part. They're built from different parts working together. Some parts provide power, others provide precision. Neither is better. They're both necessary. He gestured around the hangar. Same is true for civilizations. You have strength and honor. We have creativity and heart. Together, we could build something amazing. The Emperor was silent, considering. Finally, he spoke. General Crackstow, you represent the old ways. The belief that strength alone is enough. But my son nearly died, and it was not our strength that saved him. It was the compassion of a species we have dismissed. He turned to face his entire fleet. I hereby decree that Terra 7 shall become the first embassy world between our peoples. Trade, cultural exchange, and technological cooperation will begin immediately. The general looked like he wanted to object, but he bowed stiffly and said nothing. The Emperor turned to Jack. Jack Harrow, I offer you wealth titles and a position as Master Engineer of the Imperial Fleet. Jack shook his head. Thank you, but no. I appreciate it, really. But I just want one thing. Access to your engineering databases and the freedom to keep running my junkyard. The Emperor's laugh boomed through the hangar. You refuse titles and wealth to work in a scrapyard? It's my scrapyard, Jack said with a grin. And now it's going to be a lot more interesting. Rin stepped forward. Father, I request permission to remain on Terra 7 as our first ambassador to humanity. The Emperor looked at his son with pride and sadness mixed together. You would leave your home? I would build a new one, Rin replied. I learned more about true honor in that junkyard than in 100 court ceremonies. 6 months later, Harrow's scrap heap had transformed. The junkyard now flew both human and Dractheri flags. New buildings had been constructed where engineers from both species worked side by side. Hybrid technologies were being developed that amazed scientists across the galaxy. Jack and Rin stood in the main hangar, looking at a new crash site in the distance. An unknown alien vessel had just gone down near the colony perimeter. Smoke rose from the impact point. Jack grabbed his toolkit. Well, let's see what needs fixing. Rin's golden eyes gleamed with warmth. Together, they headed toward the crash site, a human mechanic and a dragon prince, proving that the best repairs come from the most unlikely partnerships. Behind them, their junkyard hummed with the sounds of two civilizations building something neither could have created alone. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most powerful force isn't strength or technology. Sometimes it's simply the willingness to help someone in need.